Welcome to another edition of the Eye on Life podcast. I am your host, Brian Boyer. This is obviously the outdoor edition. For some of us, they might as well get out there and enjoy the nice weather, right? I mean, why not?
Absolutely.
Now,
we've been waiting for this.
We have been waiting for this. And as I mentioned in the last episode, it was the allergy. I feel like every episode has a theme. Sort of an official theme, which people see actually when we drop it, and then sort of the unofficial theme. So last week it was clearly allergy. The allergy edition for me was awful. We were just talking about this before we came on here. And this week is the outdoor edition with Martisse Macri. And I have to say this, Martisse, first off, welcome to the Eye on Life podcast.
Thank you for having me.
As we were getting ready for the show, I was embarrassed. I was mortified. I was a little bit of all those.
Why?
Because we're now on show number 39.
Wow, already.
And this is the first time you've been on.
That's right.
And that's what mortifies me, because just so for transparency, we're very open and honest on the show. Martisse, among many things, amazing mother, amazing wife, musical, the musical prowess that you have as well. We're going to talk about who your husband is here, who's also been a guest on the show. It's a family affair.
Yes.
All these things that you do. You are also a podcast guru, and thanks to Martisse. Although some people might not thank you for this, but I thank you for the launch of my podcast. It's been more than a year now that we've been actually working together, and you've been not only amazing to work with professionally, but as a person as well. So I'm absolutely thrilled to finally have you on the show.
Thank you, and I'm so proud of you. I can't believe it's 39 already.
It's hard to believe.
It's been a year.
It's hard to believe, and I think I've been a little at the beginning. I was a little high maintenance. You were getting all these texts from me, all hours of the day. I think I've calmed down a little bit.
It happens.
It happens with me,
especially when you first start. You get real excited, and then you want to know everything, and then of course all these questions come up.
Well, the questions go like, why don't I have more listeners? Why don't I have more viewers? And I realized, like, okay, you have to build on this. So actually, not only are you a podcast guru, but you are also a therapist. As well. So I
do what I can.
I'm
Bill's in the
mail.
mail.
I'm thrilled to have you on. It's really an honor to have you. And just so everyone knows the family connection, Jay Asadi, who is the hip hop rap musician. I guess I say the word, there are certain words that I love. Guru is guru just describes certain people.
It really does.
I will say that I don't know who to say the better. Well, since you're on the show this time, I'm going to say you're the better half.
Thank you.
But and a beautiful little boy they have, and which is why we found out Martisse cannot take medication for allergies because of the feeding of the baby. So it's all good. I get that. We're not going to get personal. But I do have a question to ask you.
Okay.
So we have the backdrop on here today. You have your beautiful backyard there, and
yes.
I'm wondering, behind you there, is that a statement? Is that now? If either way is fine. Is that a bird feeder? Is it a cross?
It's a clothesline.
Do I need to get my religious hat on for this conversation today, or
no? But we can always go there if you want to.
We try to stay away from that, but yes,
that's okay.
So what is that behind you then? If it's not a cross,
it's a clothesline.
Okay, it's a clothesline. So
yeah.
So that okay. So there's a question, because you never know where we're going to go on the show.
Okay, which is the best part of the show.
Which we can script it as much as we want. We really don't script it. It's if there was, I think there's a show called Unscripted. I actually wanted to name this podcast Unscripted. So you're in Western Pennsylvania.
Yes. And
I have to admit, I don't see a lot of clotheslines anymore. Not that I'm hanging out in people's backyards that often.
Right.
But is that a thing? Do people still have that? No, is that like still a thing that people do? People have? I think it's great.
It's not huge, but I do see it every once in a while. And literally everybody that I've talked to has said there's nothing like washing your sheets and hanging them out to dry.
So is that because of the natural air? And
yeah, I guess so. I mean, like, I'm not going to hang, like a pair of jeans to dry because,
right.
They get all stiff and it takes too long. But I definitely do sheets.
Well, that's awesome. I actually that's a bit. See, here's the thing. I live in a suburban area here in Connecticut. The houses are very close together. But you would think that I live in the middle of the wilderness, because every single year there is some kind of animal that habitates in my backyard. Sometimes it's many birds. It's bees that like to create hives under the ground. So I have to pay someone to come in. I have rabbits back here. We have bears in our neighborhood. I chose to live in a city environment, more of a city environment, even though it's a suburb, because not that I don't like nature, but I do try to avoid. Nature has been cruel to me many times in the past.
Oh, see, now I need these stories.
Well, that's a whole separate show. I've never done well in nature. I've gone camping a couple times in my life. Nature and I don't get along. I'm more of even though I grew up in the suburbs, I'm really more of a city person.
Okay. I feel you there. I'm not really in the city. I'm also in the suburbs of Newcastle, which, but like there are certain things that are like very, very city. And I'm like, oh, that's really not me. And then things that are very, very country. Like I used to work at a cell phone company. And I remember somebody had come in and they gave a guy that I was working with their phone. And they're like, oh, well, we dropped it in cow manure. And he like threw the phone and stepped back. And they were like, it's just cow manure. And he was like, I'm a city boy. I don't do this country stuff. So I'm kind of like right in the middle, which I think is a good balance.
Well, here's the thing that I don't understand about that, because if you were born and bred in the city, I get that. If you were born and bred in the country, I get that. There are certain cultural pieces that might be new to you, and maybe even it might even be a cultural shock to you. But I've never understood how people react certain ways. Like if you live in the country, their cities are louder, there are smells in the city. It shouldn't, even if you've never experienced it, it shouldn't be a shock. And if you're a city person and you're in the country and you step in manure, it shouldn't be like like your life just ended. You do know that there are farm animals out there, and there's a chance that could happen.
What's crazy is that the area that we're in, we are about 10 minutes away from a very large Amish community.
Oh, right. So, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Yeah. So, 45 minutes we're in Pittsburgh, 10 minutes you're in the country with horse and buggies.
I want to do you know what? You just gave me a show idea. I want to do a show on the Amish. I'm intrigued by here's the thing. Here's why I'm intrigued by the Amish. Many reasons. I'm intrigued because I think that whole way of life is just the fact that they would choose to live that way is amazing. There's no power and everything, right? It's like living in the Stone Ages, which when I lose power for an hour, everyone's going crazy here, right? But I have seen Amish people get out of vehicles before. I guess they're allowed if they're, like on the highway or something. I've seen them at like rest stops. I guess there's a certain amount of civilization they're allowed to utilize, but they choose to, I guess, live mainly off the land.
Usually the ones that you see in cars and having like electronic devices, most of them are Mennonites. So they're a little less strict, but even now with the Amish community, they're allowed to use certain technology like phones and iPads for business reasons. And I actually know a woman who helps do content creation for a few Amish businesses.
Interesting.
And she takes care of all that posting on their social media.
So the Mennonites have a social media presence.
Yes, and some of the traditional Amish will, but they just might not handle them.
I say you mix and match if you want Amish people. You go for it. I would love if she has if they're willing to do a show. I would love to have the Amish people on the show. I'd love to talk to them. I don't know if they would do it.
I'll connect you with her. I don't know if they'll come on the show. But she could probably definitely give you some really good information.
We can blur their faces so they won't be shamed in the Mennonite or Amish community.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating. But yeah, I forgot Pennsylvania is completely Amish country there. That's interesting. I also, before we get to the topic at hand today, because it takes me forever.
That's fine.
You have your own podcast as well, and I want to give you a chance. Now, tell us about your podcast. How did you start it? And tell us a little bit about it and where people can find it as well.
Okay, so I actually used to be a radio DJ.
Right.
And I worked in Youngstown and in Pittsburgh. And when the radio station closed down, it was impossible to get back in. Even with the contacts that I had, everybody that I talked to, they're getting rid of part-time people. Everything is syndicated out of New York, out of LA. So I kind of like sat myself down and said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to do it for myself. So that's kind of when podcasting started getting a lot bigger. And it just so happened that I ran into a guy who owned a podcast network, and he brought me on, and that was how I got started.
And what's the name of your podcast? Can you tell everyone?
Yes, it's called The Pop Off with Martisse. We talk about pop culture, current events, and sometimes we can get a little vulgar. So I always say, don't listen around your kids.
I'm done shelter. Let me say, saying that I'm done is implying that I actually ever started sheltering my kids. Don't you feel like, so speaking of vulgarities, right? We're going to do a show. I keep talking about this, but we are going to do a show at some point on vices, right? Drinking and smoking, and I'm not saying vulgarities are a vice, but these are the things we try to shield our kids from.
Right.
Profanity. But don't you find, and we've talked about this before, don't you kind of find that when you try to shelter your kids, that ultimately, once they find out about these things, they're going to just go off like nothing they've ever gone off on before, like drunken sailors, because they've been so sheltered from it. So like my kids, I'm not condoning it, but my kids do have, their mouths sometimes, what comes out of their mouth sometimes to me is, it's not like the proudest father moment. But I also feel like at the same time, if they go off to college and the first time they hear the curse word or say a curse word, it's going to be like this. It's not going to be anything to them. It'll fade eventually. And I feel like it's like that with everything in life. Like I'm not saying I'm sitting here drinking with my kids that are almost 15 and 12. I'm not saying that. But some
people do say that.
Well, I know they do. That might be the other side of the the spectrum on that.
I guess for me, there's a balance. Like, I have a terrible mouth, and the pediatrician, had said the last time that he had a checkup, you got to watch with the swear words, because now he's starting to pick up words.
Right.
And I'm kind of like, he's going to hear them. I have friends who have always sworn in front of their kids, and their kids never say a word. And then I have another friend who casually would swear around her kids, and the one day he said, "Oh shit," he was like 5, and she was so embarrassed. But so you of course want to shield them from certain things. You don't want them to have to grow up too quick, but you can't shield them from everything. Because you're right, when a kid goes to college and that's the first time that they've ever drank or been around anything like that, they're gonna go wild and not gonna be able to do it responsibly.
If I forgot what it was, very early on in one of the shows, but I did say this. So if I'm repeating myself, well, I am repeating myself. But if you've heard this before, I apologize. But there's always, we all know that kid that goes to school that first week and ends up in the emergency room because they have to have their stomach pumped because they drank too much.
Right.
The kids who are drinking in high school, which I don't condone. I want to be very clear. You should be 21 before you ever have your first sip of alcohol, right, Martisse? Right? They should. Right. But the kids who are drinking in high school, those kids are not the ones ending up in the emergency room, because those kids know how to handle the liquor.
Right.
Again, I'm not saying drink with your 18-year-old when they're a senior in high school. I'm just saying that trying to shelter them is not always the best thing.
Right. And you also have to figure that at 18, if they go off to college, there's going to be alcohol there.
Of course.
So even if you're not drinking with them, you got to have that talk and make sure that they're responsible. One of the things that anytime that anybody ever asks me if I have advice for somebody going to college, I always say, for a girl, surround yourself with a good group of female friends. When I was in college, there was a group of probably about like 5 of us, and we were never alone. We never went to parties by ourselves. Nothing traumatic ever happened to us because we all had each other's backs.
Right. That's so important, and
very important.
Especially today. You hear stories all the time.
Mm-hmm. And I always think of Natalie Holloway, and I always think, where were her friends at?
Exactly. And that's
not that I'm blaming them, but
But you make a good point. And I sort of feel it's almost the same thing. Let me change that. It's not the same thing, but there's a similarity, because if you're a guy, also surround yourself with other guys who are going to make sure that you don't do anything stupid.
Right.
It might be in a different capacity.
Right.
But there's a culture on campuses, and fraternities and sororities always get the bad rap, and the fraternities do a lot of fraternities and sororities. Greek life can be a really good thing. There's a lot of community involved. Of course, we hear about the hazing incidents. We hear about that. And so that's what, and you see these guys that are doing keg stands. And don't get me wrong, I was in a fraternity. There is that part of it. There's also the part that goes out and works in the soup kitchens and does intramural sports and everything like that.
Right.
Whatever you're feeling, I'm not trying to change your opinion about fraternities here. as to our listeners, but you should be, if there's a culture of men where you're living in a house with 20 or 30 other guys, it's nice if you hopefully have a culture of accountability and responsibility. And if you're,
Right.
even if you're drinking, I sound like an old man when I say this, but if I'm starting to do a keg stand and maybe I'm doing my 5th one of the night, maybe one buddy, it only takes one to say,
Right.
hey, you might want to cut it off. Let me take you back to your room and put you to sleep before you do something stupid.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
That's all I'm saying. So I know you have a little one, and it's I know you have musicians. These musician types.
Yes.
They're always getting
Of course.
tattoos.
Yes.
And I want to talk to you a little bit about tattoos today. That's kind of the main point of the show. We're going to do a couple shows on because I want to get different points of view on tattoos.
Okay.
As kind of the culture. So here's my question. First off, we talked about this offline. You have how many tattoos?
About 6.
About 6.
I was trying to count them. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say 6.
So I'm fascinated. So I used to be like sort of, conservative in that way. Like, oh, tattoos, what's the point? Why would anybody get them? I'm almost judgmental. As I've gotten older, I'm actually absolutely fascinated by tattoos. I actually would get one, but I feel like I know people say you're never too old to get a tattoo. I'm too old to get a tattoo. I just can't in my right mind do it right now.
I don't want to say that you're too old, but there are certain things that would be appropriate.
Certain tattoos, you're saying, some of the art.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that. I'm not gonna get a skull on my face, obviously, or a skull anywhere. And there are certain things that would be meaningful. I just don't think I can do it right now. The craziest I got was in college. For 4 years, I had an earring. I really got crazy. I put the hoop in there too. I had that pirate look going on. I only did it. But here's my question. So you have 6 tattoos.
Yes.
And why do people get tattoos? Why did you get tattoos? And again, I'm not asking that in a judgmental way. I'm curious because everybody has their own reasons.
So I guess that when I was growing up and you saw them, it was kind of cool. But then I also had an older sister who had tattoos, and she was going to school she's a doctor now. But when she was in school and knowing what she aspired to be, it was kind of like, oh, so that's okay to do that. Right. And so that was kind of part of it. And then when you start thinking about, what's important to you, and then, getting it on your body and it being there forever, it's kind of cool. Then it's also kind of scary though. It's there forever.
Well, that's the part that always deterred me from getting a tattoo. The fact that it would be there forever. Let me ask you this. Are there any tattoos that you have that you regret?
Not that I regret. I do have one that I'm probably going to get covered over with another tattoo just because of where it's at.
I'm not even going to ask.
Well, okay. I have the Italian boot and the flag on my back. Okay. But I've decided, and I decided this years ago, it's just a matter of doing it. I want to get my entire back done.
So one big tattoo on the back?
One huge tattoo on the back, yes.
Okay, and do you know what you want that to be?
Yes. So I'm an avid Wizard of Oz collector. Okay. So what I want to do is kind of like a collage of everything throughout the movie. And kind of make it like a like going down the yellow brick road and the things that they saw in the Emerald City at the end. So now that's what it'll be.
One of the other things that deterred me, not just from the idea that it would be on there forever, but that it does seem painful. I know that sounds.
Sorry, there's a bee.
There's a bee that's attacking your tattoos. See,
it was.
That's a bee that doesn't like tattoos.
No.
So, I guess it probably depends on where you have the tattoo placed. Do they hurt though? Because it does not look pleasant when I see people getting it done.
They do hurt. But it is definitely really big about the place that you get it. Now, I've always been told that tattoos on bones hurt worse than tattoos on like fatty areas. I don't believe that anymore. I have one on my wrist right here, and then I have another one on my foot. So those are very bony areas. I have another one on my lower stomach. That one is about this big, took about 15 minutes, and I was screaming and sweating the entire time. But all the other ones, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, that hurts. That hurts, but nothing like that one on my stomach.
So there's a lot. We're gonna have to do 2 parts on this because I have so many questions here. But, okay. Is there any place that you would say, and you can say you can either specific to you or anyone, is there any place that should be on the body
Okay.
that should be off limits for tattoos?
It really depends on the person. Like I don't like face tattoos. But I have seen some that, like on girls where they do like the leopard here, that looks kind of cool on some people. It wouldn't look good on me. But then I've also seen guys that get some stuff and it doesn't look bad. But in general, I don't like face tattoos.
I have to say, and this is going to sound judgmental, I can't imagine how anybody in their right mind would want to get a facial tattoo. I don't again, it's not me. Maybe I'm not really judging it. If you want, I'm not saying if somebody does it, they're a bad person. That's one thing. I do understand the concept of tattoos. It's an art form, right? For a lot of people. I don't understand why anybody would want to have it on their face. I don't get that. It boggles my mind. I can't imagine, going in for and again, I know this sounds like conservative and like an old fuddy-duddy, right? But can you imagine going in for that job interview?
See, and that's the thing.
I don't get it.
You also have to know what you're going to be doing. Like if you're a tattoo artist or a musician, a tattoo on your face kind of goes,
right. Yes.
But if you're a school teacher, a tattoo on your face, not really going to fly.
I can imagine the reaction of the kids in the class.
Right. Exactly.
Unless you're a social studies teacher and you have a map and you have like the globe on your face, that might be interesting.
That's true.
Because
traditionally as Americans, we are terrible at geography.
We are bad with geography. So if there's an idea, if somebody's looking to get a face tattoo, there's my idea for you. Have a globe on your face. In fact, actually shave your head and just have the whole globe on your head.
Oh, there you go.
I think that would actually, I'm for that one. I may actually consider that.
If you ever find that person, I want to talk to them.
They're on the show. Oh, they're on both of our shows.
Absolutely.
Oh my, that'd be incredible. So here's another question I have. So a lot, people get tattoos throughout their life. Mm-hmm. So you could get a tattoo when you're 17. You get a tattoo when you're 34. You get one when you're 60. You can get them all throughout your entire life. So my question is this, okay? There's no way that a tattoo that I potentially would have gotten when I was 17 is a tattoo I'm going to want when I'm 50. Unless I luck out some way that I got something so, like, I'm a New York Giants fan, right? We talk about this. If I got a Giants tattoo when I was 17, I could probably live with that for my entire life. I'll always be a Giants fan till the day I die. But how does that work? Because again, it's permanent. I know you can get them removed, but that's probably not pleasant.
Oh, so I heard that's terrible.
Oh, it's got to be awful. But yeah. I guess so. How do you plan that? For example, for you, right? Let's say you get the back tattoo, right? And I'm just saying, I know it sounds like that's something that's pretty permanent. You're always going to love the Wizard of Oz. But let's just say something comes out about the Wizard of Oz and it's taboo, like in 5 years or 10 years, right?
Right.
And here you are, you're out, you're wearing a bathing suit, and there's the Wizard of Oz, and that now represents, some horrible, deathly thing, right? How do you plan ahead with tattoos? Or do you just go in and say, I'm doing it now, I'm living right now, and that's where I'm going with it.
So I think that you have to understand what's important to you, and when things are important to you, like your family or your background or sports teams, that's going to stay with you
right
pretty much for the rest of your life. I was watching a TV show and they were talking about somebody who had all these different tattoos. And what they said really resonated with me. They said, yeah, I might not be like that now, some kind of cultural, tattoo that they had done. But they said, but that was a part in my life that I wanted to remember. And now I get to remember it. So I guess that if you got to look at it that way, if you're going to do it.
Well, and a lot of people that I have spoken to about tattoos, they've said that, it was a life event for them, something that may have changed their life forever. To your point, it could have been a family member who mm-hmm. passed on. It could have been a battle that they had with, a disease or something they were sick, or there was a type of music that got them through a band. So I have had, that conversation with people before. So I guess with those kind of things, even if maybe like 20 years later, you're not thrilled with it, it still brings you back to a time that you want you want to remember.
Right.
So I guess that does make sense. What are now you have 6, you don't need to go through all 6 of them, but do you have a common theme? And I guess
don't.
Okay, so do most people have common themes, or do most people not? Because I'm wondering, like, does somebody have like a skull and crossbones on one end, and then like Mickey Mouse on the other side? I mean, like, how does that work?
I mean, that's a definite possibility.
Okay.
I do kind of like when tattoos kind of have a theme to it, because then you go, from one to the other and it makes sense. But mine generally don't. Like I have I told you I have the Italian boot and the flag on my back. I have a cross on my ankle. I have a rose with angel wings on my foot. And the reason that I got that was both of my grandmother's names were Rose.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah.
I have a heart behind my ear. I have the dove on my wrist, and I have the Christian fish on my stomach. How many was that?
I think 6.
Okay. So then, yeah, 6.
That's and they all do have it's really, there's really not a theme there, but they all have meaning.
Right. They all have meaning.
So here's a question, because we talk about judgment-free zones on the show, and here's my question. I have to say, first off, that there are not a lot of people that can pull off the hair, the color with the color of the hair. You pull it off. So it's red. It's red. Is the other side? What is that? Is that bluish?
Well, like a black.
Okay,
black
so
and red.
You pull it off really well. But I will be honest. And I will judge this sometimes. I will look at someone and say, what are you doing? Like you just look like it's. And of course, I'm not objective because I like you. I know you. So all that. But you look great with it. There's some people that I see and it looks like, my God, you're trying way too hard. So I guess my question, this is kind of a 2-part question for you, with the tattoos and the hair.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, why the tattoos? Why the hair? I know is it something is it expression? You're expressing yourself? Is it so like the way you look?
With the tattoos, yes,
curious.
It's definitely about expression. With the hair, so I have always, not always, but even when I was in college, I always had little like pops of red, like little highlights. And then when I found the hairdresser that I went to now and realized that with this dark hair, we could, do the fun colors like that. Right. I started doing that. And then it just started off a little bit and then it went a lot. And then people kind of recognize that. So I hate to use the word, it's my trademark, but it kind of is.
Well, so it's kind of an identity thing for you almost.
Right.
It would be weird. You'd almost feel like naked if you didn't have that going on.
I went all dark a few years ago, and I was like, I don't look like myself. I felt like I didn't. So then I had to do it all over again.
Well, look, it really does look great, but it is. I don't know why. Again, I try. People do it for various reasons. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I feel like some people are just trying too hard to be, look at me, I'm different.
Right.
And some people, I feel like it just happens organically. Like, like with you, you just do it. Ever since I've known you, you've had it. So here's the second part of that question. So you have visible tattoos.
Yes.
And you have the hair going on.
Yes.
Which to me would be a great conversation starter. If I saw you at a restaurant, you and Jay and the little guy there, I'd be like, I love that. It looks great, whatever. And we'd have a conversation or at a bar or something like that. That kind of thing. But do sometimes people judge you before they really know you, simply because of the color of your hair and because they see tattoos? Are we still at that point in society, or are we kind of grown from that?
Probably a little bit. Now, as far as the tattoos go, they're very dainty. The ones that you can see. So I don't think that anybody is going to judge me over a dove on my wrist. But when I was working at the cell phone company, I would always wear a watch because they had a, no tattoo showing rule. But as far as the color goes, maybe it's just because of the area that I'm in and people already know who I am. But I'm sure that people judge. Everybody judges when they look at somebody. So it kind of is what it is. I think that if my hair was all black, or if I didn't have any tattoos, people are still going to judge you. They're always going to look for something.
People really are. They all are always looking for something. That is true. You could look like you could have nothing, nothing going on, and they still judge before one word comes out of your mouth. Sometimes,
right?
Unfortunately, since we're on the subject of tattoos, do you think that tattoos? Okay, so it's actually a very similar word: tattoo and taboo. I feel like they've become more mainstream. I feel like when I was growing up, again, back in the day, right when I was growing up, I feel so old when I say that, but I really do feel like it was almost taboo. Like you saw someone with a tattoo, and they must be in a gang, or they must be a biker, or they must be something there. But I feel like today so many people in all walks of life have tattoos, and they do it for different reasons. Do you feel like it's still taboo, or is it less so now?
I think that it's taboo in certain areas. Like I know that now when, you could walk into a school and the kindergarten teacher is probably going to have a tattoo.
Right.
Probably. And you wouldn't be surprised. I remember when I went to Lowe's, I think it was last year, a girl had, crazy colored hair and her ears were gauged, and she's not doing less of her job. The color of your hair doesn't determine how you're going to do a job, just like the color of your skin isn't going to determine that. So I definitely think that there's less of a stigma now, because most of the people that have tattoos that started doing that are in their 50s and 60s.
That is true. I've seen a lot more people in the workforce, like in professional settings, that have tattoos that are fairly visible. So I think that people are maybe less conservative in that way now.
My sister is a doctor. She's an eye doctor, and she has her ear tattooed. She has behind her ear. She has on her arms, on her legs. She has a mohawk. Sometimes her hair's red. Sometimes it's neon green. Sometimes it's blonde. So it's nice when you can go somewhere and you don't feel like you have to be all, stiff and rigid.
Well, here's the thing, right? Okay. There are certain professions that I just want the person to have the most experience and the most background. And I always use I use doctors and pilots, airline pilots, as examples, right? Because, for example, all right, let's just use the pilot as an example. Now, most of the pilots, I think there's a dress code for pilots, because I've never seen a pilot, male or female, that hasn't looked a little bit more buttoned up and conservative, right? I've never even seen one with long hair. Women, but I've never seen a male pilot with long hair. They always, whenever you see them, they always look like these preppy guys, right?
Right.
Whatever. I will take the pilot, male or female, with the mohawk, the face tattoo, if they have the thousands upon thousands of air experience that I need to get from point A to point B safely, versus the person who might look, all dapper,
right,
who might not have the same experience, who I don't know what their experience is, and maybe they won't get me there safely. It's the same thing for the person that's performing brain surgery on me.
Right.
I don't care how they look. Okay, when hopefully I won't even be up when I'm having the brain surgery done, right? That's a problem. That's first off, that's a problem. I don't care how they look. I just simply want them to have the most experience. They can do whatever they want with their hair, with their skin. It's none of my business. If they have if they do have some items in their life that are taboo, they like some things that are a little funky outside of work, I don't care. As long as it's not hurting society, I really don't care. I just want the most experience.
Absolutely. You want the best, and you should.
You should have the best. Absolutely.
Right.
So as we wind down here, just have a couple minutes left, but I want to ask you, since we're on the topic of hair and tattoos, what about piercings? Are you a piercing person as well, or?
A little bit. So I have my nose pierced and I have my belly button pierced. When I was in college, I had my eyebrow pierced.
Okay, so I have to. I asked this question with complete fascination, and again, it's tough to ask some of these questions without sounding judgmental, but I have to ask.
Uh-huh.
I think some piercings look really great on some people.
Right.
Again, it depends on who it is. If I get a nose ring, and I walk down the street, I'm going to look like a fool. Let's just be honest here. I'm going to look like an idiot. They're going to be like, dude, you're trying way too hard. You're having a midlife crisis. Get over it. That's just the case. But
right.
But you're going to walk down the street and be like, oh, they're styling out, Martisse, looking good. So I guess but here's my question though, is the nose ring, the eyebrow piercing, the navel ring. I guess why, especially because some of them you see and some of them you don't see. And the nose ring has always been something that I've wondered about, because it just looks painful to me.
Well, okay, I'll start with my first piercing, which was my belly button ring. I got that done when I was 17.
Okay.
And that was when, Britney Spears was big. And so
Right.
everything was the stomach shown with the belly button ring. So I remember I was 17 and I asked my mom if she would take me. I said, my birthday's next week. If you don't take me, I'm going to go next week anyways. And she was like, no, I'll take you, because she wanted to make sure that I went someplace that was going to be good and clean. And I did. And then with my eyebrow, the reason that I got the eyebrow ring was because I really wanted a nose ring, but I was too chicken to do it. So it was kind of like the closest thing that I could get to it. And then finally, when I was working at my sister's doctor's office, I kept telling her I want a nose ring. I want a nose ring. And she said, no, you can't wear it. You can't wear it. And I finally talked her into it. And I've had it ever since, and I love it. I just feel like it goes.
Okay, so I'm going to ask an old man question.
Go ahead.
And I acknowledge this. I acknowledge this. What happens when you have like a cold or like if I had a nose ring this past week, I probably would have ripped my nose off my face. So how does that work? And I also wonder the same thing, like when people have, and we're not going to get it. We get this on another show. People have, the tongue rings.
Yeah.
I understand why some people utilize that. We're not going into that conversation right now, but I also when I eat, like sometimes I'm eating something like a spicy food, I'm like, how does that go into the ring on the,
So I have a few friends that have tongue rings, so I could ask them. As far as the nose ring goes, after a while, you just kind of forget that it's there and you just kind of work around it.
Well, the nose is soft though, right? So there's no bone, it's all cartilage.
Yes.
So I guess it really shouldn't hurt that much.
It doesn't feel good, but it's 1 second and then it's done.
The actual piercing itself doesn't feel good.
Yeah, the actual piercing.
But once it's in, it doesn't hurt.
If it gets infected, or like I know, like the first few days it was a little sore just because, I had a hole put in it.
Right.
But it wasn't bad. The worst is when the baby tries to pull on it though.
So is he going to get tattoos when he gets older?
He probably will.
He probably will. But again, you're not making it taboo. It's going to be a normal thing for him.
Right. I just want him to go someplace that's clean.
Right.
And don't get anything stupid.
I think that's great advice. And it's mommy and daddy are not in a gang. Right. There's no gang signs. Whatever. It is what it is. I think it's a great art. I think that, I love watching these shows on TV where they're going in, and it really is an art form. I do. Right. I respect it. I respect people that do it. As I said, I'm not at this point. I'm just not doing it because I just feel like it would be like, that'd be the theme of my next show, which I think I had midlife crisis. I just feel like that would be too much of a midlife crisis, but I think it's awesome. And I'm glad that we got a chance to talk about it. So again, we're going to conclude. It's been great having you on the show.
Thank you for having me. We have to do this again soon.
We're definitely going to do it again because I feel like when you and I get together and we chat, it's really just about life.
Right.
It's just a bunch of we talked about clotheslines to start the show. And we talked about things that are taboo, and then we ended up with tattoos and piercings and hair color. Hair color is another thing, Martisse. If again, it's natural on you. If I colored my hair blue, I mean, let's be honest. If you and I got into a Zoom call and my hair was blue, wouldn't you be like, what the hell are you doing?
Like all your hair? Because if you did like a little bit of blue tips, I think you could pull it off.
Well, I appreciate that. I think I would look like an absolute idiot.
I think that we should try just for fun.
How long do they last? I would consider doing it.
Now you could get ones that are like it's chalk and you just like put it in and it's temporary, washes out.
I don't know. I don't know. The earring. When I retired that earring. I'm a huge
peer pressure. So you're going to be getting texts now of all blue hair.
I'm going to be looking. Well, maybe we'll go with pinkers. I did get highlights once. That was about the extent. I look like I look like NSYNC. I belong to NSYNC, which was not the look I was going for. So again, you have where can people find you and your podcast? I want people to check that out.
So the podcast is anywhere that you listen to podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, all of them.
Okay, and the name again?
The Pop Off with Martisse, and you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Martisse M.
We're gonna pop off together. We're popping off for the past 45 minutes.
I know.
I definitely want to have you on.
So now you got to come on my show.
You let me know whenever. I'll always make time for you.
All right.
Tell Jay Asadi, who again, Jay Asadi, he's been on the show before. I have to get this in just before you go here. If you are looking for, and I don't even like to say up and coming because he's really already there. But if you're looking for hip hop rap music that literally speaks to you, literally will make the hair on your body stand in a good way, not in a cringy way, in a good way. You check out Jay Asadi. You can find him online as well. He's been on the show. Check out that interview. That was amazing.
He just wrote 2 songs this week.
Were you singing in any of those songs? Because I know you sometimes pop into some of those songs, which you sounded great when you did.
Well, he hasn't recorded all of it yet, so we'll have to see.
Well, you may end up on there, but this guy's lyrics, his voice, his music, it is it's like nothing you've ever heard before. You can hear some of his influences in there, but you will never say that he sounds like this person because it's very unique. So check out that. That's Jay Asadi. Martisse Macri is our guest today. And I guess if you want to follow and like the Eye on Life podcast, they should do that too. But
absolutely,
Martisse, thanks so much for joining us. We're gonna have you on again this summer. We're gonna figure out something else to talk about.
Okay,
it's always a pleasure.
And then we're gonna make plans for you to come on my show.
I can't wait. I'm excited about that. Maybe we'll do some hair coloring or whatnot. We'll.
Yay!
I don't know if that'll help the listenership. It'll probably hurt it, but nonetheless.
They have magnetic piercings, right? So you can try it out, see how it looks. Yeah.
I'm not doing any magnetic anything on my body. I will do the color before I do piercings. My luck, it'll get stuck on something and it won't work that well for me. But thanks so much for joining us. Keep an eye on Martisse and her podcast. She's amazing. Keep an eye on Jay Asadi, amazing musical artist. If you have tattoos, if you have piercings, keep an eye on those as well. Make sure that if they're in a spot that can get a little wrinkled, you maybe do a little bit of workout in that area. I know that can happen as you get older too. And in the meantime, until next time, keep an eye on life. Thanks so much.